Welcome. I'm Kevin Paulson, and today we're here to talk about the hidden value and hierarchy of recurring revenue models and why recurring revenue is a company valuation multiplier. We're going to discuss the dramatic impact recurring revenue has on company valuation and why investors and acquirers are willing to pay a premium for businesses that have it. And best of all, we're going to hear firsthand stories from some very courageous CEOs who are making the conversion to recurring revenue. Some have actually successfully made it, and they're sort of now managing it, while others are in the process of just getting started and are in the planning stages. So before we get going here, let's start, with what recurring revenue is and get a sense of how much recurring revenue folks have currently in their business. So what I'd like to do is just throw up this quick poll, and maybe I could get a confirmation that that poll launched okay.
See it.
Okay, great. So, what is recurring revenue? So we're defining it as subscription, maintenance contracts, annuity streams, but essentially the all thing in common is that customers must proactively put up their hand to turn it off or cancel in order to stop receiving the product or service. So even if we're talking about repeat or regular customers, regardless of how sticky they are, we're not including that in the definition today of recurring revenue, just so that everybody has, a sense of what we're talking about here. Looks like we got about 4 of 7 people currently weighing in. I think anybody on the panel we learned doesn't have the ability to vote, so we can expect to sort of bypass those folks. Excellent. Hey, thanks everybody for weighing in on that. Let me just close this down. So I want to start things off with a real story to show in real terms the effect of the valuation multiplier. Let me introduce Michael Delman from Beyond Booksmart, and you guys can hopefully enjoy some of this video.
Michael Delman, I'm the CEO of a company called Beyond Booksmart, which teaches people how to be more effective in managing their executive function skills. When I met Kevin a couple of years ago now, we weren't really thinking about scalability in a formal sense. We just knew we wanted to grow. But the closest we were coming to a real conversation of scalability had to do with this development of an online platform or portal that would enable us to reduce operations costs and integrate various functions of the company under one platform, as Rachel says, to rule them all. So that was kind of all we had going. But our model was very unscalable. It's one-to-one coaching, very intensive, and no commitment on the part of our customers. No real commitment. So one of the things Kevin did, and Rachel's more of the expert than I am on how we did it. Well, when we went through the evaluation process, it became apparent that our membership model or recurring revenue was not something we could rely on. There was no monthly recurring revenue at all. It was 0. So on all of our drivers, we had some good scores, and some of them were quite high scores on the assessment. But the 0 on recurring revenue, it was a little shocking to Kevin. To me, it was a shrug of the shoulders because I didn't even see how we could do it. I didn't even think it was possible. How do you get recurring revenue when your product is so idiosyncratic and you need to be flexible and adjust to the customer? And Kevin was shaking his head politely, but shaking his head that I needed to think differently. Fast forward, that's the only thing we sell now is memberships. People commit to a minimum amount that we call the foundation period of coaching, and then it just auto bills. They're on auto bill after that, and they just keep going. So in terms of driving up kind of customer retention, also not just retention, but utilization rate. So we're having more predictable revenue. So not just longer term, but predictable. those are two of the biggest changes that we've made. And, there are other things too. The customer success director, Kevin, is something I could probably talk all day about that. But I think the shift to membership was a huge, huge value add for us. Michael Delman, I'm the CEO.
So Beyond Booksmart had been operating for about 14 years without any recurring revenue. When we built their enterprise value profile, which is step one in AlphaEquity's process, it showed two key opportunities for increasing their company value: financial performance and recurring revenue. I obviously can't provide the specific data, of a client company, but for illustrative purposes, if we were to imagine a fictitious company doing, let's say, 4 million in revenue with net earnings of 10%, this company would be producing 400,000 in annual profit. At AlphaEquity, we know from our database of tens of thousands of companies, the average valuation multiple across all sectors is about 3.5 times earnings. Just to make the math easy, if we were to push the valuation multiple for this fictitious company from 3.5 to 4, this company would be valued at 4 times 400,000, or around 1.6 million. As mentioned, when we met the ownership at Beyond Booksmart, they had zero recurring revenue, which, really placed them squarely in the 3.5 times earning valuation camp. Now, for reasons that we'll get into in more depth, a recurring revenue business is valued based on a multiple of annual recurring revenue, ARR, as opposed to earnings. Let's take a look at, what that would mean. This slide that you're looking at here is of a privately held recurring revenue company, and it shows a methodology that arrives at a 3.5 times revenue multiple. Now, thinking about that fictitious company, if it was converted to a recurring revenue model, their valuation would be based on a multiple of revenue instead of earnings, and would conservatively be valued between 12 and 14 million instead of 1.6 million. So this is the kind of valuation multiplier that can be achieved by converting to recurring revenue. And this demonstrates the increase in company value realized by Beyond Booksmart. The valuation multiplier conservatively on the order of 8x. Anybody that's interested in learning more about many of the other drivers affecting company valuation, I really invite you to take a look at Beyond Booksmart's full case study entitled "Discovering a Pathway to Scalability: One CEO's Journey." And if anybody wants to shoot me an email, I'm happy to get that over to them. So before we jump back into this, let's take a minute to meet the panelists. Please join me in welcoming my co-moderator, Ryan Thomas. Prior to being acquired by Thrive Networks in October of 2020, Ryan was the founder and CEO of Timlin Enterprises. Founded in 2010, Timlin Enterprises helped clients operate as digital organizations by enabling and continuing to advance and adopt the tools available in the Office 365 platform and SharePoint. The company was predominantly focused on the life sciences and biotech industries, boasting an impressive clientele list along with additional proficiencies in banking and financial services. Welcome, Ryan. Maybe you could say hi, take a few minutes to briefly share some of your insights on building a scalable recurring business. And let me kill the share here. And I'd like to ask folks to maybe in the upper right-hand corner of their screen, they should see view. And I suggest they choose the speaker option. So from the upper right, you should see view. Click on that and then just go to speaker view if you don't mind. Sorry, Ryan, go right ahead.
All right. Good morning. Thanks, Kevin. And thanks, Rob, for being here as well and sort of sharing your story. A little bit about me. Before I get started, it's actually kind of nice. We have a small group today doing this, which means we can be a lot more interactive. And I don't like speaking at people, and I won't be doing a lot of speaking anyway, just sort of adding some commentary. But I would say it's a really good opportunity for those of you that are here to try to learn more about recurring revenue, the how to, the why, the valuation concept, the different types of revenue. Please ask questions. Love answering questions, love talking to people. So I'll sort of get that out there. And so please don't be shy. And if there's any topic that you're interested in, feel free to follow up with any of us afterwards. So real quick, as Kevin said, I started a very project-based business, services business and technology in 2010, and learned the hard way that it was really hard to try to grow a project-based business, because if I got to 2 million in revenue and then I got to 4 million in revenue, in order to get to 6 million in revenue, I really had to sell the 4 million and then another 2 million next year of projects. And on top of that, I also realized that it started to get difficult from a resource management. Once you get big enough that, you got, 20 something people, you're trying to manage time, working at accounts and things like that. Resource management's really hard. Projects stall, clients go on vacation. You're billing clients for a couple hours here and there. And, you start to get accused of being a lawyer or feel like a lawyer. And I literally did bang my head against the wall one day and said, there has got to be a better way to do this. And thankfully at the same time, the whole cloud revolution took over. And the Microsoft stack, which is what I focused on, kind of all dried up on the big juicy on-premises stuff. So I had to pivot. I basically had to pivot or die. I had to figure out how am I going to make my company survive. The large companies that were spending 7 figures a year in consulting dollars are not doing it anymore. What they're doing is they're moving all their stuff to the cloud, and all the infrastructure people were getting the business. And I was not an infrastructure person. We were helping people use the software. We were enablers. We were, let's call it collaborators, document management people, things like that, right? So we were on the other side. We were writing custom stuff to help larger companies do some really interesting things. And it kind of, now that I think about it, actually amazes me that I didn't go out of business. A lot of my competitors went out of business. And I racked my brain, losing a lot of money every month, thinking I got 6 months of run rate left before I'm done. What am I going to do? And only had to lay off one person, but got my team together, the leadership guys, and really worked through what do we need to do? What's the customer want, and what's the new customer look like? And the new customer was now a bunch of organizations that couldn't afford that really expensive software was now buying Microsoft 365 licenses for $20 a piece. And so now 200-person companies that were not in our market at all were totally available to us, and they needed help. And the big consulting companies are not going after the 200-person companies. So what I thought was, okay, I can go down market, help those companies. There's a lot of value there for them. They're buying $1 billion piece of software that they have no idea how to use. They don't have the technical staff to help them. And it was ripe to come up with a complete recurring revenue, fixed price, smaller price, monthly model that gave them a little bit of this here, a little bit of that there, which is for us with strategy, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of governance, a little bit of development, a lot of support. And I packaged that up into a fixed price. It was still all services. I didn't really change my business. The people were all still doing the same things. We just sort of converted it to more of like a product that you could sell as a chunk. And so I was kind of, I know Kevin's going to show you a chart later on about the types of recurring revenue. And I think what you mentioned, Kevin, is the where you go from a 4x of EBITDA multiplier to a 3x of revenue multiplier is when you go from the true recurring revenue model let's call it the most valuable kind. I was kind of in the middle, and probably went from like a 0.75x of revenue multiplier for a project-based company to I got about 9x EBITDA for my business. So I was kind of in the middle on the recurring revenue value, because I was really still just a service, and it was a service that someone could cancel, I guess, if they wanted to. But it was better than selling it for almost nothing when it was basically a project-based business. So bottom line is, went through the pain, got it done, and now I basically don't do anything. I do a little bit of helping businesses. So I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm not selling anything. I just want to help people. And that's why, if you have any questions, I will give you the straight shot on what I think. And if I don't know, I will tell you, and I'll try to put you in touch with somebody who does.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Ryan. Lots of flavor there. And, look forward to kind of coming back around on that. I'd also like to take a minute to just introduce remotely another CEO participant, Dan Wiswell. Dan is CEO of Caltech Laboratories and another company, Amblyonics Instruments. And we'll be hearing from Dan in just a little bit, kind of remotely. He's actually got an issue with some folks that are ill, and he's at a customer site covering, but we're going to hear his testimonial essentially from Tuesday. Now, also with us today on the panel, Rob Salafia, CEO of Protagonist Consulting. And Rob has courageously volunteered to share his roadmap to recurring revenue with us today. Dan Gilmore, unfortunately, wasn't able to be with us today, but maybe there'll be an opportunity to meet him down the road. Let me flip back here, share screen with y'all. Okay, so we're going to dig into this deeper, but let's just take a minute to put a little context on the broader subject, beyond recurring revenue. For those of you who aren't familiar with AlphaEquity, what is AlphaEquity and why should anyone care? Well, AlphaEquity is about being very deliberate about building a roadmap that uncovers the hidden scalable value in your business. So your business is sustainable and you don't have to leave money on the table down the road at some point when you're looking for a transaction. As private, unpublicly traded companies, we need some form of liquidity event for, owners and investors to get their money out. So, at some point in time, it's transaction time and you don't want to leave money on the table. And the thing is, your company really can't scale until you do, right? So this is a great quote that I really like. I ask you to consider, Turaj Parang. He's a lead at GoDaddy's merger and acquisitions team. And this quote's from his book, Exit Path, where he said, whoever claims that entrepreneurship is a lonely game is not going about it the right way. Having spent literally decades building and scaling businesses at AlphaEquity, we couldn't agree more. And that's really very much what we're all about. The reality is layers of management expertise and resources, they really just don't exist at a lower middle market company. And in speaking to thousands of owners, we often hear CEOs say they lack the people and expertise they need to tackle the strategic initiatives that'll take their business to the next level. In fact, you're looking at a recent AlphaEquity poll where 85% of respondents claim this is always or sometimes the case. We're trying to change that. AlphaEquity, we provide a proven support framework for owners, founders, and CEOs. It's all designed to help unlock scalable growth, company value, and create interest by strategic buyers and investors. In fact, in the first month, we guarantee to identify AlphaEquity for your business, and over the next 90 days, really begin to take action to begin to implement changes that'll accelerate your valuation timeline. So you can think of us a little bit like an accelerator, but we're not for startups. We're for lower middle market companies with sales between 2 and 50 million, or companies that expect to be in that range within 12 to 18 months. So the net, we help to architect scalable companies positioned to be strategically attractive to investors and acquirers, with a proven framework for securing premium transaction outcomes. So, all right, let's jump back into the topic of today, recurring revenue. We're joined here by best-selling author on the subject, John Warlow, to hear his take on recurring revenue.
So we know that recurring revenue will make your business more valuable. And what I've seen is that acquirers, when they value recurring revenue, they actually look at it and place a different value based on the type of recurring revenue you have, the contractual relationship, if you will, that you have with the customers that buy from you on a recurring basis actually affects the value that acquirers will place on that. And what I've seen is there are 6 different contractual relationships you can forge with your subscribers. I'm going to walk you through the 6 different contract types now, so you can get a sense of which ones are most valuable. I'm going to do it like a David Letterman's top 10 list, starting from number 6, the least valuable in the eyes of an acquirer, all the way up to number 1, where we look at the most valuable type of contract that acquirers like to see. So let's start with number 6, consumables. A consumables recurring revenue model simply states that the subscriber or the customer buys from you on some sort of regular cadence because they run out of whatever you sell. So a classic example of that would be coffee. So coffee addicts, of which I am one, have to replenish their caffeine high, usually once a morning, maybe once in the afternoon. Certainly that's my schedule. And as a result of that, we are likely to buy coffee on a regular basis. There's a Starbucks at the end of our street. I happen to go to Starbucks at the end of our street pretty regularly, typically once in the morning, typically once in the afternoon. There's nothing tying me to Starbucks. I could go to one of the other competing coffee shops. It just so happens that I tend to go to Starbucks every morning. And so that is a consumable because I'm running out of whatever it is Starbucks sells. Now, moving up the ladder in terms of more valuable form of recurring revenue is what we call sunk money consumables. And staying with the coffee theme, the best example I can give you is the Nespresso coffee maker, where customers make a purchase in a piece of hardware. They buy the physical coffee maker, the George Clooney advertised coffee maker, and it makes them much more likely to buy the capsules from Nespresso. Now, interestingly, Nestle, the owner of Nespresso, is a smart company. They make the machines, the coffee makers, available through a variety of different distribution channels, right? So you can get them at a big box retailer, you can get them online. What they don't do is make the capsules available so widely, because what Nestle wants is the platform, the coffee maker, distributed as widely as possible, but they want the recurring revenue of the capsules. And so the only place you can go buy the capsules is through an Nespresso branded retail store or online at Nespresso.com, because again, their value in this business model is in the recurring revenue. Moving up the ladder in terms of contract types, and the most valuable in the eyes of an acquirer is a subscription. So we've all subscribed. If you've subscribed to a magazine in your life, you know what the subscription model looks like. Typically, there's a start date, but there's also an end date to your typical subscription where you've got to make the re-up decision. Number 3 on the form of recurring revenue contract types is what we call sunk money subscriptions. Now, this is a kind of a mashup of two ideas we've already talked about. Sunk money, meaning the customer makes an investment in a platform and then they buy on subscription. A good example of that would be the Bloomberg terminal, where Wall Street traders buy the physical hardware that sits on their desk. So they've sunk money into a platform. And then they buy Bloomberg's information on a recurring basis. And so they're much stickier as subscribers, because if they're going to give up their subscription to Bloomberg, this big piece of hardware that's sitting on their desk is no longer valuable. So it makes them even stickier and therefore more valuable in the eyes of an acquirer. Number 2 on this list of contract types is what we call auto renewal subscriptions. Now, this is very similar to number 4, subscriptions. The only difference is that they auto renew. There is no formal re-update in the future. These are much more valuable forms of subscriptions to acquirers because there is no end date, and therefore the revenue goes on into the future until the customer cancels. Good example of that would be any software you bought in the last few years is typically on a recurring evergreen model. In the kind of offline world, you might look at someone like an Iron Mountain, who will store documents for you. And they don't call you up every month and say, would you like us to continue to store the documents? They just store the documents for you on a forever basis. You have to either call them and tell them to ship them back or shred them. Otherwise, they're going to bill you and continue to store your documents. That's an auto renewal subscription. Now, the most valuable form of subscription in the eyes of an acquirer is a multi-year contract, where the contract stipulates that the customer must continue to buy from you. So, for example, when most wireless carriers launched the iPhone was such a desirable product, so much hype in the marketplace about this brand new phone with all these new features. There was so much hype that the wireless providers, AT&T Mobility in the United States, forced their customers into a 3-year contract that they couldn't get out of, because they knew that customers would be willing to buy that, and they knew that their stock price in return would be based on its contract value. And that's going to be the most valuable form of recurring revenue. If you can get multi-year contracts from your customers, then an acquirer will be able to see that that revenue is guaranteed to perpetuate beyond your tenure as the owner.
Well, now that we're calibrated on the hierarchy of recurring revenue, let's get an update from Dan Wiswell, CEO of Caltech Calibration Labs. And again, I'm going to kind of switch screens here and try and show you his video from Tuesday. If you guys will Bear with me here. Hopefully this will work. If everybody can hear me, is it possible to get a confirmation of that?
Yes.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep.
So now that we're calibrated on the subject of recurring revenue, let's get an update from Dan Wiswell, CEO of Caltech Calibration Labs. See what
And
I did with that segue, Dan?
oh, thank you very much for that. Can you exit out of the share?
Yes. Yeah, let me just say, Dan is an AlphaEquity advisor. He's part of the advisory board, and he's actively investing in accelerating his valuation timeline. And Dan, if you could just give folks some flavor of what your business does, the progress your company has made in working with AlphaEquity, and an update on your efforts to increase your mix of recurring revenue, that would be fantastic. And I'll kill the share here. Give you the screen.
Hello, folks. Welcome to this meeting. I'm Dan Wiswell. I'm the president of Caltech Company, and I also own a company called Amblyonics Industrial Instrument Company. I am in the test and measurement sphere, and I've been the president of Caltech now. I think I'm about 24 years into something like that. I'm crazy, but in any case, when I became a member of the community here, I was hearing this thing about recurring revenue, and I wasn't quite sure how I could apply it to my own situation. At Caltech, we calibrate our customers' equipment. Sometimes we'll be at the customer's location. Sometimes the equipment will come into our laboratory directly. And we see maybe 25,000, 28,000 calibrations a year. My biggest expense has always been payroll. And I try to figure out how can I possibly do this recurring revenue model in my business when it's not something that we've ever really actually considered. Well, when I took a look at the cycle that my employees will go out and visit the customers to calibrate equipment at their locations, maybe it's 1 month or 2 months in the year where the customer gets this really large invoice from us. And then for the rest of the year, we've went to their location, we calibrated the majority of the equipment, and then they may send us the follow-up stuff in dribs and drabs. But what that basically means is they get maybe 1 or 2 very, very large invoices from us in a year, and then a whole bunch of smaller ones. Well, if instead of it going that way, what I did is I took a look at my largest customers, and I found that if I focused on them and offered a subscription membership kind of thing to our services, what I would do is I would take a look at the calibrations we perform for them. We would average the cost of all of those calibrations throughout the year, and then bill them at the beginning of each month. And what do you know? A large portion of my customers saw that as something that they really wanted to do, because it allowed them to plan better, allowed them to send a steady stream of smaller checks our way, as opposed to 1 to 2 very, very large ones. That changed all kinds of things. All of a sudden, I no longer really had to be too concerned about meeting my payroll, even in the slower quarters of the year. And it's funny, when you do one thing, it's always good to try something and see what it does rather than try a whole bunch of different things. Well, when this occurred, all of a sudden, my numbers just started changing, and the company in general, as it is right now, my revenue growth is up 25.3% over last year. And my profits increased by over 350%. So I have to say, listen, that's one of the big reasons why I joined the community, because I was always looking for some sort of, voice from the outer world, some sort of information that, that could lead me to maybe managing my business differently than I had in the past. And it really has worked for us.
Awesome. So hopefully that came through for folks. They could hear it okay. Dan, unfortunately, couldn't be with us live, but we do have Rob Salafia. He's here with us today, and he's CEO of Protagonist Consulting. Rob is also participating in the AlphaEquity program, but he's in the planning stages of how to introduce recurring revenue into his business. Rob, thanks for being so courageous to share your current thinking with everyone. Please give folks, an idea of your current business and then share your work with AlphaEquity in your effort to transition to recurring revenue.
Thanks, Kevin. Let me just see. I'm just going to make a little adjustment here in the screen. So thank you all. So give you a little bit of an idea. You can see from my background, you see a guitar, you see a boater hat. My background is in theater and performing arts. So the first half of my career, I was an entertainer. I was an accomplished tap dancer, rope and wire walker, storyteller. Second half of my career, I've taken all of those skill sets and help leaders connect better with each other more authentically, increase and enhance their executive presence, create momentum behind their ideas with narrative storytelling. So I had a opportunity to join a company, sort of a transition from being a performing artist into this world of corporate learning, and transitioned into a role as the top sales executive in a boutique training company. And the learning was fantastic. We specialized in these small group skill building programs. It was very hands-on work. This is sort of the apprentice model of learning. This is the way we did it in theater. This is the way we approached it in corporate learning as well. I learned a lot. I worked with organizations like American Express, Harvard Business School, MIT Sloan School of Management, Merrill Lynch, really large organizations, helping leaders advance in their careers, move from an expert into people leadership, into the executive levels. Fast forward about 12 years, I was there in tenure, and something started to change. And come to find out, the company was being sold. I noticed this, that there was less customization. They were doing more things. I looked at it more like widgets. I realized I had to make a transition. And so betting on myself and taking a risk, I was a top sales executive. I could sell it. I could design it. I could teach it. And so that's what you need if you want to start a business. And I launched a business of my own called Protagonist Consulting Group. I wanted to differentiate myself. And so I wanted to differentiate myself rather than do just standard programming. I wanted to go a little bit deeper, customization, really establish the relationship with the client since I was the product. And I developed a pretty good, solid business. But I was always one of those things where I got trained as an executive coach coming out of that last company. I got certified as an executive coach. I reached out to my contact at MIT, and come to find out she was starting an executive coaching cadre within the mid-career MBA programs. And I've been there ever since. So I've been there about 10 years. It adds a good credibility. I also established a number of client-based accounts, leveraging my theater and the performing arts. That was my key differentiator. And it was mostly, though, by word of mouth. I wasn't really doing sales per se, and I was doing okay, but it was always that I was known for deep client relationships, not cookie cutter, dedicated engagements that had powerful impact, transformation, if that's what I was selling. But these were long sales cycles. These were program by program sales. And it was 30, 45 days, sometimes 60 days in payment. I really learned how to manage my anxiety when you see the cliff and not knowing where that next job is going to come from. In a conversation with a couple of clients, one in particular was a friend who was working for a large company. And I said, the thing I didn't want to have to do was, when I retired, was lock the door and just walk away from my business. There had to be some value in it. And he has a large company. It was a learning company. I said, do you think your company would be interested in a company like me? And he thought about it and he said, well, usually, it all depends upon, how much business you're doing. Come to find out, I didn't know anything about how to value a business. It was nothing I had line of sight on. And so that's what I started to really reached out to Kevin. When I saw this, I saw evaluation and started to learn exactly what were the levers that you needed to have in order to be attractive to someone for a company to buy you. The thing that I realized was if I was a solo shop, they would give me a little bit of money and then say, come on board with us for 3 or 4 years, and it would be a payout and earn out for a larger piece of money. And he said, from Kevin, this is not what you want to do because they don't usually work out well. What you want to do is to have some kind of recurring revenue. He also said, go and do some discovery. So I started to interview some of my key clients, understanding how they approach their talent development process. Come to find out, executive presence was the #1 deficit that kept top talent, a rising talent, from getting to that executive level. And it was something that I knew, but I didn't realize how, from the client perspective, they organize their learning. And she said, this is where you want to be putting your focus, not on the emerging talent, not on the top level, which is where I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, but on this middle level, getting this top talent executive level ready. So in thinking about that, and then speaking with Kevin and a couple of other resources that I'm currently using, I understood, and it was similar to the coaching model, the fellow that in the beginning of this session that was talking about how do you scale something that's so idiosyncratic? And that's what I was doing. This is theater-based programming. How do I do that? Because it's all usually in person. Well, come to find out, because of the COVID protocols, and I was working at MIT, and in 2020, March of 2020, everyone was off, was doing their programming online. I got a call from MIT and say, can you do these programs online? I used to do these large group interactive sessions. In 2 weeks, I had that done. And I started to really learn. I said, I've wanted to go in this direction. And so I started to grind on on virtual programming. And as you can see from the picture, I've worked really hard to create a really good image. And then I've learned how to deliver the same programming that I was doing in person online. And then it started to click. So with Kevin's help in the evolution, I've gone from clients to customers. I'm looking at from a project-based that Ryan, you were talking about, to more product-based. So now what I'm working on right now is a primary program, which is a subscription model called Effortless Executive Presence. And it's has a combination of 3 components. One is a monthly masterclass, a book club based on my book, Leading from Your Best Self, and also a series of weekly video nudges sent right to a person's email, all around helping top talent, these usually directors or leaders of large companies, but line of business, to get executive level ready. To get to that executive level means having more strategic mindset, understanding how to show up and inspire, create inspired action at a large scale. So, and this is not easy for a lot of folks. So these 3 offerings is really just helping organizations. And what I discovered was a lot of the individual learning happens at the line level, and large organizations from the central level like subscription models. They like to be able to offer something that a lot of people can attend. So on the individual level, I offer this at $63 a month or $600 a year. At the corporate level, and this is really where I'm trying to build the value in my business, is $3,085 a month or $30,000 a year for unlimited users for a corporation. And this is starting to really get some traction. The one client that it really helped me and educate me on how they do their talent development loved this idea and is really, I think, going to be one of my first sign-ons from a corporate level. And it also feeds into other work that I'll be doing, which is a 16-week accelerator program. It's all virtual with a learning learning platform. And then from these products, I'll be able to add additional products. So these are upsells or add-ons. As an example, one-on-one coaching. If somebody wanted to do one-on-one coaching, they could contract that. So these are mindset builder, that the subscription is a mindset builder program, a mindset activator program that people can tune into. I'm going to use my theater-based approach to really make it interactive, engaging, and help build that mindset. Help people can then take one-on-one coaching. They can come to my 16-week accelerator program, and we'll be adding, continuing to add more products. This will be a framework to be able to hang more products on. And I think from the last conversation, Ryan, you thought it was from the video, I learned something last session, is that having a yearly contract is one thing, but doing maybe a 3-year contract with a corporation, that's where we really have some high value.
Thank you so much, Rob, for giving us that overview on all your work. I wanted to sort of open up the discussion a little bit, maybe first to panelists, see if they have any questions. And I think we're such a small group here today. I'd like to invite folks to certainly turn on their video if they'd like, and we can join in this discussion a little bit.
Yeah, feel free to answer, to ask any questions. Glad to answer them.
Yeah, I encourage you to ask some questions, of course. It was a great discussion on Tuesday, much larger group, so it has its, pros and cons. But one of the things that came out that was interesting, to me, and I think you might have just been hitting on it, Rob. Ryan, you had talked about in your business, as a service business, just moving customers to sort of a bit of an on-demand model where you're selling them a certain number of hours. This is your business, Ryan. But every month, it's expected. People are planning for it, that cadence. And then, of course, if they need something extra, you can obviously, do something more and build them more. And that's an opportunity maybe for you, Rob. Ryan made the point that, you're kind of going from your custom programs to all the way to the other side, to this online subscription-based thing. What about a product in between there as part of your transition plan?
Well, that's a great idea. I think if we go down to the bottom of this diagram, you'll see this 90-day effortless executive presence accelerator program. So that would be it's actually extended out to 16 weeks. It's 4 modules, 2 sessions a month, where individuals would enroll in. It's basically a learning program, but it's virtual. I've already been delivering this program to corporate clients very successfully, but I'm doing this more as an open enrollment. There would be an opportunity to get additional one-on-one coaching inside of this, and there would be other products that would be able to hang off of this as well. I would also have the opportunity, if a client wanted to do a dedicated program, still do dedicated programs. So the idea of this came out of a program that I delivered for one of my key clients, which was virtual, similar to this accelerator program. At the end of it, he said, well, what do you have next? If somebody finishes this program, how do they continue? How do they continue to learn? And that is really the Mindset Activator program. That's your monthly subscription program that somebody going through the accelerator would say, this is something, it's a no-brainer. I would actually, if they came to the accelerator program, give them 6 months free in the subscription program that would just carry on after they finished, after the 6 months, it would be an auto renew. So if somebody joined just the subscription program, they might get inspired to take more of the deeper dive program. If they took the deeper dive program, then they would automatically get enrolled into the accelerator program. So one feeds on the other.
Got it. Yeah, so they could come in from either side.
Right.
Cynthia, I saw you put up your hand. Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I'd like to, hi Rob, thanks for that. We're in your industry as well. Sherry and I actually work together and own a training company. What I'd like to know is when you were making the shift, what kind of resistance or objections did you hear when you were selling it to clients? I understand that you've had success in selling it, but I can imagine also that there were places where you had some resistance or some objections, and I'd like to know what those were and what your response to those resistance or objections were.
Sure. So it all depends upon the size of the company.
Okay.
So, if I'm charging $600 a year for an individual, then if you had 50 of those, that hits your $30,000 mark. And so if a company doesn't have that large enough, pool of rising talent, then if they're coming through, let's say I'm working with that client and they're doing let's say a custom program, and I'm still doing that work,
Right.
do custom program, I would offer them free enrollment into the accelerator, into the membership club, and then see if they're open to that. Some accept it, some don't. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm finding is the larger companies are the ones that are open to this, the ones that are looking for something, and actually it fits, especially in this current environment of where the budgets are getting a little tighter. They can get something of reasonably high value, and that's the thing that I'm always trying to balance. Is when I started my company, it was about really having high value to the customer, having high value to the individual learner to create transformation.
Yep.
And so that's really important to me. So just creating a product that, runs people through, that's not what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to create high value content. So that's in the delivery of whatever that is. If it's that monthly webinar, if it's the author conversations, if it's the weekly nudges, these are things that I'm trying to magnetize them to me and whoever else that I'm bringing in to be a part of the delivery of these, so that they get that value and they see that there's other things that they could do, like take the deeper dive, or from the deeper dive they could continue it. And I'm going to be continuing to add high value content, not just I'm not going to be selling widgets. I really want to be selling something that has high value.
Right.
But I haven't really found too much resistance. If whether most everyone likes the product, whether or not the timing is right. It hits all the right learning, the learning buttons rather.
Sherry, I see you might have a follow-up there, but let me just quickly turn it over to Lee Bush. He had texted a comment in the chat. He says, my company has made a point of pride that we don't do subscription. And so I think it's an opportunity to maybe, you could perhaps, Lee, explain very briefly, what space you're in and a little bit more about what you're saying there.
And
Sure.
I just wanted to thank Rob. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks.
Sure thing. So actually, while Rob is on screen, I just want to compliment you for your floating graphics. That's very cool. And so I do have one piece of the business that I run, which is a diet company that is a recurring subscription, weekly meetings. I've done 170 of them so far, and I'm tired. So I'm curious about you're doing monthly and weekly, and you're creating content, right?
Yeah.
So is there any wisdom or complaint or whatever you'd like to tell us about creating the content that keeps this continuity thing going? What have you learnings about that? And also, I'm just curious, like, how long do people stay in?
Well, Lee, just to give you an idea, I'm about to launch this, so I haven't really started this yet.
Well,
This
let
is
me
something
tell you.
that
No, sorry, kidding.
that I'll be launching in 2023, so next year.
Okay.
But the idea that I've already for the past 3 years, more 4 years, have been in the content creation, the design, and the delivery of a mode. So the hidden blessing behind the past 3.5 years, for me anyway, is I always had a little resistance in creating like videos and online content. Being forced to do it created sort of this desire to do it and do it really well. So now I'm getting much more comfortable speaking. I'm getting much more comfortable developing content, that is engaging, that's relevant. The learning platform that I'm using has video support, and so, like as an example, the 60-second video nudges that are weekly, I'll be able to create those in bunches, and eventually there'll be 52 of those, and there'll be one version. And then if people keep going, there'll be a second version. So people would opt in to that particular feature, and then they would just be put on an auto delivery model for that. So they'll be getting really good content, in the flow of work, something that is proven to be, learning effective. And it actually follows a principle in theater, which is the actor's secret. Always have something that you're working on that week. And that's what that video nudge would give. And nudges have really shown that, to be effective in learning. So that's what I want to be able to do, is to have something that someone buys into from a pedagogical perspective, or they really say, I really like learning from Rob. I like his approach. I like what he offers. So there's always that magnetism, or that attraction is already created. And then the delivery of this would be feeding them information that they already want. So
Hey, folks,
sort of the idea.
we're going to circle back on this, of course, but I just wanted to take a little break in the discussion to share that, what you're experiencing today is, a new format designed to really enable us to reach a broader audience of people with an introduction to the AlphaEquity support framework. And I'd like to mention that we're actually looking to invite a limited number of folks to experience this, free of charge, in exchange us some feedback, to help shape the offering. So in that spirit, I'd like to just take a second to launch a poll. It will be the last poll, but I would really appreciate you guys weighing in. Is that coming up for folks?
Yep, I see it.
Awesome.
While you're doing that, Kevin, I just want to say, Rob, I'm thinking about hiring you because I'm looking around at my video and everybody else is looking at yours, and I'm thinking, we're a bunch of slackers. Like, look at your production value.
Come on, you could do better.
Your whole theater. Look, I got my little light here. Usually I have like I'm backlit. It's terrible. I'm like, I gotta sort of try to live up to what Rob's doing. But I mean, I can, in this day and age, I can see, and you're doing executive coaching, right? So you're helping people present themselves better. You're giving, you present yourself very well. You're well lit. I'm sure you got some excellent lighting system. Your background is perfect, perfectly blurred. And I think the rest of us just kind of like, hey, we sit down at our desk and there's crap everywhere. And, I blur the background. And so you don't see the air conditioner hanging out of the wall in my 3rd floor office, that kind of stuff. And no, I mean, it all matters, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And like, now that we've done this a second time, like I noticed it before, but now I'm really paying attention. You know what I mean? So all that stuff is important.
That's the key.
Yeah,
that's the key. So what you just did, you're building awareness. You saw it the first time, you saw it the second time, you go, oh, now I'm getting it.
Yeah.
The third time, you can actually get it. So I'm happy to help.
Yeah. No, I just want to give you props for that. It's it's important in this sort of more remote world where it matters in every setting, obviously in person as well, but just this remote world, like just the intentional way in which you go about doing things makes a difference in your presentation, your skills, how you speak, how you listen. I mean, everything. And so it's just want to, I just want to point that out.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I did have a
you.
question. Yeah, I just had a question. Sorry, Kevin. I just had a question for anybody, because I always want to know, why are people here? Or what do you want to know? What are you hoping to get from this? Is there something a question you want to ask? Is there a struggle you're having? Is there whatever it is, like that's why we're here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's worth taking a second. Mark Landgren, nice to see you. We had some engagement, probably goes back middle of COVID or even pre-COVID. But I'm very curious, how are things going for you, and what brought you here today?
Yeah, things are going very well. It's interesting. I was in the process last year of looking to possibly exit. And so I hired some folks. I went through this whole process, and I found out for myself that recurring revenue was a very, very large component of valuation. And I'm very blessed. Over 90% of my business is on 3-year contracts. Probably 45% of them also have auto renewal on top of that. So I found out that was very important to potential acquirers. I did find out that I had a percentage of 2 or 3 of some of my larger customers, Walmart for one, who is out of date on a contract, and it's a pain in the butt to get them to get through and re-sign a contract, and that it did affect. I got questioned on that, even though I'd had the customer. Walmart had been a customer for over 10 years. People still looked at that and said, geez, we need a written contract. But I was really interested to see if I had been missing anything. And so I really enjoyed that list. And when I first saw your definition, I didn't see contractual agreements there. I wasn't sure whether it was ready or regular business, but then when you went through, and I had a big smile on my face when I started.
Right. Top of the ladder.
Yeah. So that's how my business has always worked. So I'm feeling good about it, but I'm just looking for reaffirmation. I got within a week of closing on a deal with a private equity firm, and I stepped back, and sort of glad I did. They gave me away a lot of secrets as to how to continue to increase the value of my business. And a lot of it were things that I could do myself. I didn't need outside capital. I just needed to do some work on my sales team. So that's what I've done. I hired a new CRO, and I'm going at it myself. So,
excellent.
But thank you. It's good to hear, a lot of other people's viewpoints on how they've tackled this issue.
Yeah. Would anybody else like to weigh in on what brought them here today?
Yeah, I'll just mention we're a SaaS-based company, or 90+% of our revenue is SaaS-based in the medical coding billing space. Findacode.com and HCC Coder are our 2 most prevalent products we're most known for in the industry, and we're growing and we're having fun. But we bootstrapped it from the very beginning, and as I get towards the twilight of my career, I don't want to mess up a potential exit, whether it's 1 year from now or 5 years from now. So I just want to make sure I get my ducks in a row. Never realize the importance of that buyers like to see accrual versus cash basis. So we're looking at probably switching over to accrual for 2023. Just wanting to learn from those that have gone down the path and trying to make as few mistakes as I can, because I'm going to make a lot anyway, but I don't want to make less stupid ones.
Yeah. So I'm going to put this in the chat again. So anybody that would be interested, we're going to basically hold this once a month. And then there's a sort of a sister session, which is a little bit more of a workshop, open hours kind of thing. So if you're the only person that shows up, you're kind of one-on-one, getting one-on-one with the advisor that's moderating. But most likely you're going to get a handful of people showing up. But it's an opportunity, kind of like we're having here in this group, because it's a limited size group, to kind of go deeper and get some, interaction going on. So shoot me an email or even grab a time on my calendar if anybody's interested in hearing more about it and, being invited to the next one. And again, it'll be free of charge. We're just at this point looking for feedback on the format and what kind of value folks are getting from it. Anybody else want to kind of weigh in on what brought him here today?
Well, excuse me, we have plans on selling in the next 3 to 5 years. And our business is very similar to what Rob was talking about. And I'm kind of interested in your design, like how long is your program? I don't remember everything there, but I'm just interested when you do a monthly thing that was a master class or something, how long is it? And is it like and you said you do that all virtually?
I will be doing it virtually, yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure yet whether it'll be 60 or 90 minutes, probably 60, probably 60 minutes.
Okay, so you do a 60 or 90, depending on what you decide, webinar once a month for people, and that's part of that subscription?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I would also have to accommodate, there might have to be a second one for an Asian group. So the company that is signing on has people in North America, Europe, and Asia. So I have to think about, accommodating for that. So it might end up being, a separate focus for certain people on that. And then
Rob,
it's a
is there
book club.
engagement- Is there engagement throughout as well, like forums or?
Well, that's what I'm thinking of building on, Lee, is if a particular topic for that month, which is really focused in on this, executive level readiness, I would offer a deep dive session that month, and it would be a per person price. And I would put a limit on, let's say, the first 20, 24 people, to sign up for that, to really take the to take it from awareness building to skill building. And so I'm thinking about adding pieces like that. If a client wanted to do more of a deeper dive session for themselves, or for their own organization, they could hire me to do that as well. But I think just having for that core subscription, having those 3 pieces, I think really covers it. Everything else would be like add-ons, pay for add-ons.
So Slack, forum, people communicating non-real time.
Well, the asynchronous piece, I have a really strong, good asynchronous piece in my training program, the dedicated, the open enrollment training program, the accelerator program. I have a good learning platform. It has, there's video support and also, among the individual learners. I haven't decided yet what the platform I'm going to use to have an open conversation for anyone that joins the membership, the master classes, because anything that you do introduce, you have to make sure that you can follow up on. So I don't want to add anything that I can't follow up on. Everything that I'm putting into place right now, I can handle myself. I also have another person that I've done design work with that is very excited to come into this process with me and be like a co-presenter, or maybe he can, if we have to do a second layer of programming, he could take that on himself. So I'm excited about having a backup. And really what I'm looking for is 3 people that I could bring on board with me that could be additional coaches, could be additional facilitators. I have a really good team around me that 2 crackerjack administrators, are really very talented, web designer. I'm working with an organization that can help me really create the scheduling, appointment scheduling, email. A lot of this has to be good communication out to folks. So there's a lot of foundation that has to be built, and I have a good team helping me put that together.
While I think of it, Lamont, I think it was you that was talking about maybe making sure all the boxes are checked. So, as we say, you don't leave money on the table when you do get into sort of a liquidity event. We got a great podcast that we would recommend, and you can hear people talking. It's really all about how they built their business to scale, and then what the sale process was like for them. And many of them talk about how they listen to every single podcast to build up their arsenal of acumen, so that, when it comes time that they're sitting across the table, from these professional private equity folks,
Right.
they've got a clue, they've got some tricks of their own at the ready,
Yeah, I've learned there's there's about 200 acronyms that you need to pop off the top of your head of, whether it's, ARR, the long contracts is monthly versus annually. But, and there's things I haven't been tracking, and I don't want to become overzealous, but I want to just track probably the top 10 things that they care about most and maybe do better. I think there's several I'm not tracking I should be. So I think if you got a checklist of what I should be tracking, I think that's one of the things I'm going to get better over the next 2 years, is track the right things. Because to know what they're going to ask, instead of saying, oh, I don't know, we never measured that. That's what I answered on a handful of things. So,
Well, you're doing the right thing by starting this process early. And this is actually for you, Lamont, and you, Sherry, take a lesson from Mark, who jumped off, but he got to the end of the road and abandoned the deal, probably because he learned a lot about the deal too late in the process. And I think that, I wish when I did my deal, I wish I had spent the 2 or 3 years prior getting ready. And it would have made me / saved me some money, however you want to look at it. But there's just so many components to selling your business that you want to try to get right. And I know Kevin's got the AlphaEquity, like the checklist, that sort of test you can take, right? And it's high level, but it identifies a lot of the key areas, and talking to people. And like you said, you definitely got to go to accrual-based accounting, because when they start digging you apart, it's going to be a disaster, right? Unless you can accrue versus because it doesn't really matter when the money comes in. That only matters for taxes, right? Everything else matters, like what's going on in your monthly run rate. And if you can't calculate that, they're going to struggle sort of evaluating your business. I mean, that's just one of 100 things you're probably going to look at.
right. And so I'm learning from people I'm talking to, okay, well, I'll start by making that change. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but I got to do it.
Exactly. Pain in the butt. It's a very big pain in the butt. Start getting all the out clauses out of your contracts now. Start getting multi-year contracts. Start showing. There's a whole bunch of things that these people care about when they're buying, assuming it's private equity. They all will, but they're all a little bit different. And
I mean, there's a lot of 1 and 2 year contracts. Why not push them to 3 and give them a discount or something? But that's better for valuation. But then what I heard from today is I need to measure. I have this percent's monthly, this percent's annual, this was 3 years. I haven't broken that out like I need to. I don't look at those numbers. So.
Yep. And Lee, I don't know. You said you're here because Kevin invited you, and that's it. But it sounds like you're kind of pulling your hair out a little bit from what the way you phrased. You're getting kind of tired of doing these weekly meetings. Do you have any opportunity to try to put a subscription? When you said you sold intentionally without subscription, like it's a selling point. Why is that? Is that because you're trying to fight against the wave, or you're trying to sell differently, or your customers don't want to sign up for something long-term? What's the story?
Yeah, this isn't a business service as much as it's a weight loss company. So we're selling to individuals. The company was originally formed to sell to corporations, to sell to HR departments, and that was a disaster. So we're selling to individuals. And, what I've been saying is we are not like Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers has a financial incentive in keeping you in the struggle and extracting money from you. We know exactly what to do. We're going to sell you this 12-week course or this 24-week course, and then you don't need us anymore because we've given you our best stuff. Come to find out, some people still want support. So we do have a subscription service for people who want continuing support. But, we've positioned ourselves against the big guys by saying we don't do what they do, which is setting you up as an open wallet and not fully serving you as a result of thinking of you as an open wallet. So that's the ship. That's like turning a tanker to change that messaging and strategy.
And that makes total sense. And I look at your business and I say, as someone who's, tried to lose weight my whole life, and struggled and made progress at various times, and I sort of compare you to what Rob's doing. I look at your business and I'm thinking to myself as a customer, right? I always go, what value do I get? And I love, first of all, I love that you're not just trying to get me on the hook and get yourself into my wallet slowly forever. But I would also think I would love to do your 12-week program. And then, but then what value I would get would be a small ongoing fee to attend Zoom meetings, support meetings, because here's the thing, like weight loss and health, the knowledge changes. So you want to provide updates to those people over time. And I'm sure you're learning new things to teach people every year, new health guides, new nutritional studies coming out, whatever, new recipe, whatever you're doing, right? That stuff would be a valuable sort of, even a small stipend, an ongoing fee that sort of pays for you to keep doing that, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we've been doing. It's $49 a month for weekly meetings that you can nip in and out of. And, I'm presenting on a variety of topics for support to keep you engaged in the process. People who bought into a course retain access to the website and the basic functions of the website, and they can review everything that they learned in the course. The courses are live, but they're also recordings.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the subscription is more of a give you what you need kind of thing, but like you're saying, at a lower cost.
But the difference is it's voluntary. It's voluntary. You're not forcing people to do that in order to get your service, which I think is it's a nice sell.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot to get someone into a weight loss program because they think it's going to suck. Like they think they're going to really be suffering. And so they have to hit a rock bottom moment in order to sign up for it. And then we show them that it doesn't suck at all. But, survival, brainstem, scarcity, emotional factors all play into that. So that's why, we're also like, it helps that it is a defined engagement for their commitment. And then they can decide later if they want more.
I hate to interrupt, Lee, at such a good point in your discussion. But I want to be respectful of everybody's calendars. They're probably going to jump here instantaneously. So I would say I'd love to come back to this discussion. I'd love to get you together with Ryan possibly to talk some more about that and, go a little further on this. Let me know anybody that's interested and we'll keep you in the loop and, keep inviting you. But otherwise, I want to thank everybody so much for their time this morning. I know your schedules are valuable and really appreciate you participating.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for your time.
Kevin, if I could say, I put my email address in. So Cynthia and Sherry, if you're interested, Ryan, that's my email address. Happy to help. And, from just a conversation or coaching, whatever. And Lee, thanks for your input there on the forums.
Yeah, Rob, love to see your final website. We get it all put together, and that'll be interesting to see next year. So,
well, check out my website now, protagonistconsulting.com. I have a great video on there, but it's going to be very different than that. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
You too.